G'day, legends. I hope that you are having a fantastic day. Now, we're going to go over the normal stuff. We're going to go over the news. We're going to look at the maps. And in this, we're going to talk about Ukraine and maybe its accession into the EU. We're going to talk about US Congress. We're going to look at some hacks, some maps, some bloody everything, missiles coming in. We've got a little bit of everything, you know, the usual bloody breakdown we do. Now, as we know, over the past week, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy from Ukraine has been in the United States to try and rally support, to try and get those votes in Congress across the line for the Biden administration's $60 billion that could go into Ukraine. Of course, that was voted down. Now, President Zelenskyy is now on his way back into the EU from America as Ukrainian media reports. The trip to DC ends in disappointment, left the president largely empty-handed. Now, there was a few $100 million given. I wouldn't exactly call that empty-handed, but when you compare it to the billions, yeah, maybe it makes it look a little bit like that. So it's now Wednesday afternoon in Washington, Wednesday evening, and so far there's been no word if this bill for further aid to Ukraine will actually be passed, as US Congress members are scheduled to leave Washington, D.C. on December 14, being Thursday, so tomorrow, for a 3-week holiday break. Now, there are doubts around even if the votes go through, can that actually get pushed through in this amount of time? But that 3-week break with no more promised funds, we know that the US has said, or the Pentagon has said, that the current funding is running on fumes. White House press secretary has said in the daily briefing, Speaker Johnson has said the House will leave tomorrow without fixing the border, without funding Israel, without funding urgent needs in Ukraine. That would embolden would-be aggressors around the world. Now, the Senate is currently gridlocked in the $110 billion deal that includes aid to Ukraine, Israel, border security, and Taiwan as well. And this morning, in a landslide of support, the US Senate passed a record defense spending bill, some $886 billion freedom dollars that will move now into the House of Representatives. But of course, it's expected to pass from there. And that is for a record military spending bill. And I have somewhere, but maybe not right here, how many votes it actually was. No, I do actually have that on me. So vote is in Congress, and yays 87, nays 13. So love spending some dollars on big business there, bloody, you know. But the bill features the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, so the sole budget component dedicated to providing aid to Ukraine, and this initiative is set to be until 2022, and that bill allocates $300 million for the program until the conclusion of the 2024 fiscal year and the subsequent year. So there's more money given there, part of that, but definitely not that military aid in the $60 billion that the Biden administration and Kyiv are seeking. And this is separate, but by tomorrow we should have an answer and see if Congress has actually come to an agreement on further aid. Now, I do believe that there will be some agreement on aid, but we just don't know where that is going to land, of course. The Republicans want more for the border security on the southern border. Democrats are largely in support of Ukraine in this back and forward negotiations from there, but have they left it a bit late? Maybe it'll step into then the next year. But although this blow has actually been softened by Oslo today, announcing another $3 billion in aid over 5 years to Ukraine, and the Danish Prime Minister vowing another $1 billion. So still a fair bit going in. So while Zelenskyy was in the US, there's been some clips come up from this Fox News interview, and I actually thought that this was a deep fake when I first saw it. So I went on the Fox News website, and it is actually legitimate. So let's have a look at what he says here.
So I think that it was so difficult for us to do it, but what is, I think, the most important thing to understand what's going on, that Russia didn't occupy any village, any Ukrainian village during this year.
So this reporter doesn't say anything, but a very important one was Bakhmut that fell in late May, early June. Bakhmut was a very important town, and I believe could be a real pinnacle point of this war. When in 5 years we look back and study this war, about the actual effect that Bakhmut had on the operation going forwards.
There are critics who say that you've tried to consolidate power. headlines that the Orthodox leader in Kyiv under house arrest, that you consolidated Ukraine's TV outlets, that you ruled out holding elections next spring, calling for unity. But then the mayor of Kyiv says that you're turning it into an authoritarian state.
So that's along the lines of what like
criticism?
Orban
What do you
will say about getting into the EU as well.
say to critics who are saying that?
I say such person from government or mayors think about the war, think about how to defend our people. Don't travel through the world each day. Travel to the front line. Ask people, ask soldiers what they need. Do this. Not build roads for today. Don't do it. Spend all your money to the weapon, to the drones, to the society, to the pensions, and etc. And don't cry, because you're leaders, and that's it. That's why we are, and that's why we stay, because mostly people are not crying.
But it is important for people to question things like this as well. And under martial law, Zelenskyy does have certain powers around, of course, the voting, but also it is interesting with some of the media, some of the religion, and this as well. Now, the EUCO summit on the 14th of 15th of December will be running from tomorrow, and the majority of EU member states are determined to approve Ukraine's accession into the European Union. Now, Zelenskyy has expressed his hope in then this passing. So let's look at what he says here. Volodymyr Zelenskyy phone call with the Prime Minister of Italy on the eve of the important European Council meeting in December 14-15 in Brussels. The parties coordinated their positions and discussed Ukraine's progress in implementing the European Commission's recommendations necessary to open negotiations on Ukraine's accession into the EU. Now, of course, this is by the official statement. Zelenskyy expressed hope that Ukraine's efforts to launch negotiations would be fairly assessed and that the EU leaders would make a corresponding historic decision. And this is what he has said. Ukraine has fulfilled its part of the commitments. We have once again proved that we are able to achieve impressive results on our way to the EU despite unprecedented challenges. I believe that unity will prevail at tomorrow's meeting of the European Council, and the European Union will reaffirm its strength and leadership. The parties exchange views on the implementation of the peace formula. Of course, this is Zelenskyy's 10-point peace plan in there. But there has been, of course, spanners in the works from a lot of angles, but mainly from Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who has vowed to block the decision. Now, European Commission has suggested that 6 of the 7 preconditions for the start of the formal accession talks have now been achieved by Ukraine, although this is disputed by Hungary, which accuses Brussels of lowering the bar to help Kyiv. And the BBC has said Orban stated words to the effect of war, corruption and big agricultural sector and mistreatment of its Hungarian minority disqualify Kyiv from joining the EU anytime soon. We are the voice of common sense in Europe. And these standards they're talking about, has the bar been lowered? It's probably, as well as, but they do say they've met these. So let's actually have a look at what they then call the Copenhagen criteria. So this is from the EU website here. So European Union operates comprehensive approval procedures that ensure new members are admitted only when they can demonstrate that they will be able to play their part fully as members, namely by complying with all EU standards and rules, having the consent of the EU institutions and member states, having the consent of their citizens as expressed through approval of their national parliaments and by referendum. Now, who can join? The first step is for the country to meet the key criteria for accession. These were mainly defined at the European Council of Copenhagen in 1993 and are hence referred to as the Copenhagen criteria. Countries wishing to join need to have stable institutions guaranteeing democracy, the rule of law, human rights, and respect for protection of minorities, a functioning market economy, and the capacity to cope with competition and market forces in the EU. This is going to be a problem for Ukraine. Currently, they've got problems with even countries around them not wanting their trucks and grain and things to move. And as well, we know the economy has had a huge hit from the war from Russia. The ability to take on and implement effectively the obligations of membership, including adhere to the aims of political, economic, and monetary union. The EU also needs to be able to integrate new members. And we know there are a number of countries, say like Turkey, who are waiting to join the EU. Ukraine is on that same list, hoping to get in. And the summit is beginning, and there already are negotiations underway. Although the EU has said you can't buy votes, and Hungary said that they won't be blackmailed, in a BBC report, the EU's Commission announced it was unblocking about 10.2 billion euros of more than 30 billion euros of EU funds for Hungary that had been frozen because of the backsliding on the rule of law. So what will actually happen here? Look, we're not too sure, but let's have a look over what Viktor Orban, of course, Prime Minister of Hungary, has actually said here. We do know that the Hungarian Prime Minister, the Ukrainian President, had a bit of a face-to-face. We're not sure exactly what was said there, but it gives us a little bit of a breakdown. And Zelenskyy says he raised the matter with Orban during their meeting in Buenos Aires on Sunday. I was right and very direct. The key is very direct to him, that he has no reasons to block Ukrainian membership to the EU. And I ask him to tell me one reason, not 3, 5, or 10. Tell me one reason, and I'm waiting for an answer. And then Orban, through and maintained, blocked the proposal, which requires unanimous decision by all leaders of the 27 bloc countries. So this is what we're getting at, is like with a lot of things we talk about, whether it's UN Security Councils, a NATO, EU, that every single country has to say yes. If one has the power to just veto it and shoot it down, it looks like Orban will likely do this. Now, these are separate from each other, but he said the government's current position is that a rapid accession of Ukraine to the European Union would have unforeseen consequences. Ukraine's accession on a fast track is not in the interests of Hungary or the European Union. We're interested in a peaceful and prosperous Ukraine. But this requires the establishment of peace as quickly as possible and a considered deepening of a strategic partnership, which could one day, in a few years' time, even lead to Ukraine's membership of the European Union. But only when the time comes. There is a time for everything, but the time for Ukraine's membership of the EU has not yet come. So, of course, he has vowed to shoot this down, and I won't be surprised if we see that happen. Now, this week, Russia had a second large missile assault on Kyiv. Now, Ukraine has claimed that all Shahed and ballistic missiles were successfully intercepted, 10 of each. So 10 Shahed, 10 ballistic missiles. And that there's been 53 people injured, including 6 children, from falling debris. And we have some footage here in Kyiv from this as well. So you see where something has hit here and just the amount of damage to these buildings. Now, I'm not going to speculate on whether this was debris, whether it hit. I am not enough in the know to say that. And we do know that Ukraine has absolutely clamped down on any footage being released of this. And if you do film something like this, expect a knock on the door from security services. And as we've seen within the public apologies, people have had to do along with this as well. But this is, of course, I won't say the start, but in the beginnings at least of what is expected for Russia to increase its targeting of infrastructure into winter, very similarly to what we saw last year. Now, along with targeting infrastructure, like hard-hitting infrastructure, Russian hacker groups have targeted Ukrainian mobile networks, Kyivstar, which is like the large network similar to like AT&T in the States, like I'm not sure if that's the biggest one, or Telstra if you're in Australia. And the mobile network was compromised by an employee, and this has caused very large outages. And this is what then that the SBU had to say about this. Cyber specialists of the Security Service of Ukraine and Kyivstar specialists in cooperation with other state bodies continue to restore the network after yesterday's hacker attack. According to the preliminary calculations, it is planned to restore fixed internet for households on December 13, as well as start the launch of mobile communication internet. The infrastructure of Kyivstar was critically damaged, so the restoration of all services in compliance with the necessary security process takes time. One of the Russian pseudo-hacker groups has already claimed responsibility for the attack. It is a hacking unit of the main directorate of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, better known as the Game, which in this way publicly illegalizes the results of its criminal activities. The Security Service of Ukraine continues to document the Russian cyber attack on the civilian infrastructure of Ukraine as another war crime by the Russians. But in this, they've said that there has been about 500 actual assaults, 500 cyber attacks just like this, and they've got in. And I'm actually surprised that we don't publicly actually see more of this going on. But of course, behind the scenes, there's going to be a hell of a lot of this. Now, the the hackers will say they actually did far more damage. They're saying they took out complete networks of things, and it's going to be bloody weeks to fix. That doesn't sound like it's too bad. They'd say it is digital infrastructure was critically damaged, but they're claiming that it was a far higher than that. But we are unsure, and will we actually know? Probably not. Now, of course, let's have a look at the maps. So here we have Ukraine, the center of the capital of Kyiv. Red areas occupied since 22 and purple since 14. Of course, here we have Romania, Poland, Belarus, and Russia around here. And if you're wondering, then this is Hungary, like we've been talking about. And deep state map, if you want to, I always talk that maps should have no, they should just show the map, show what's actually moving. But we see down on Hungary here, Orban's pro-Russian regime. Although, Hungary has, well, they could have stopped all the EU money going in, and they have signed off on it. Yes, they may have got something in return, but I wouldn't exactly call it that regime down there. But, of course, let's go in on the maps. Now, we haven't seen anything down in the west of the country down here. We do know that there are a number of Ukrainian soldiers that are on the left bank of the Dnipro. We know there's a lot of fighting, a lot of artillery going on there, and a lot of claims from Russia, Ukrainian accounts that we don't have anything geolocated yet or seeing much of. We know Russia had a big push there and lost a lot of men there, but as far as big movements, no, not really. Now, the first place I actually want to come is then into Mariinka, because I think what is happening here is interesting. And Russia is, people are going to hate saying this, they are turning back fairly quickly a lot of the ground Ukraine has actually made over their long-awaited spring, summer, start of winter offensive, counter-offensive that was pushed. But Ukrainian Brigadier General Alexander Tanarovsky took to Telegram to push against disinformation about Russia capturing Mariinka. We'll look at the map. So this is him. By Mariinsky direction, deterrence of the enemy in the areas of Novomakhalivka and Krasnodarivka continues. 11 attacks were repulsed in the area of Mariinka. The enemy is gathering forces for further assaults. Continues information leaks and provocations about the alleged complete capture of the city. Mariinka's defense continues. Okay, so he's saying that there is a bit of an information campaign out there. So let's have a look at Mariinka and then have a look at what has happened here. So, of course, it sits in and around here. Now, let's step back on the map and see where Russia's made the ground. And it was about the 12th, I think, I last spoke to you. This might be easier on ye old satellite. So here we go. This is Mariinka back on the 12th. So what we do see is down to the south here. We do see that Russia made a fair bit of ground in that 24 hours, pushing up here near Pobeda. Now let's talk about that quickly first. So this is, oh my God, I did have one. Oh, this one. Sorry, I named it this in the beginning and then I renamed it. Situation southwest of Donetsk City. Russian army recovered a series of positions south of Mariinka, which were lost in July. So they were lost in the Ukrainian counteroffensive and then have been taken down. Now, this lines up, Pobeda here. This lines up right in here. So you can see these paddocks. It's just this area, which, you know me, love when the maps show the same. But at the end of the day, they're fields. They are positions in there. But let's have a look then at this. So we see that Russia has expanded its control further beyond then this roundabout here. And then they've pushed up that deep state map, which of course pro-Ukrainian, pro-Western map here, as showing that basically all of Mariinka, but these very, very outskirts here is then under control, and then onto the 14th comes under control. Now, I don't know, can you claim that this isn't under control? Probably, it's not right up to here, but by this map, it does look like Mariinka has come 98% under control of the Russian forces. But of course, this has been, of course, this purple, that's been pushing on this for the entirety of the war. So it hasn't made, that far. But Mariinka is a complete ruin. Now, I probably can't show all of this on here. This is a Russian tank here working in Mariinka here. And you can just see the amount of destruction. Every building here, everything is being completely destroyed to rubble. And you'll see some GoPro footage here as well. I'll put it on the Telegram of this area just completely leveled, and that soldiers and armored vehicles, they're having problems in here just because, one, there's rubble everywhere, the armored vehicles are struggling, and then the soldiers are saying there's just no cover. So the fighting in here is absolutely hell. That said, Ukraine still has good supply routes in and around this area with this one road running direct east to west. So let's have a look then on to the Surak map in Marinka and have a look and see where this lines up. Now, it is showing, to my eye, basically the exact same. It's showing at least of Marinka itself. Now, out to the north is showing significantly different. It shows this paddock is under Russian control. But then let's have a look at what the situation actually looks like down here. Now, of course, you can just see, this might take just a second to then render, but you can see how flat this area is. Now, of course, this whole area has been destroyed and moved through very slowly. And this down here, these are the exact positions that we were speaking of. This is Pobeda, so we were looking top down, but on these positions just here. And these are all trench systems in between, then tree lines in here too. But one thing is, this is the exact road we're talking about. And with these open fields, with these roads here, that Ukraine has really good supply into here. And this is one of the reasons it has taken a while to fall. And it's not like Avdiivka, where it is at threat of being actually cut off. But at this point in time, with the geolocated stuff, Marinka is basically under Russian armed forces control. Now, where we are going to pick up is we're going to go down to the west, and somewhere we know south of Kyiv, of course, Robotny in here, Novopokrivka, as there has been a fair bit of movement in here. Now, I just want to give you an idea. This is where we spoke about the other day, that Russia made a heap of ground in only a few days. So let's roll back. I want to get this bit. So this is where that large advancement happened, and then Ukraine got some back, and then we step up to the 12th, 13th. So they made an advancement through these positions here. These were positions that Ukraine had gained on that counteroffensive, and then up then to today. So there was more ground made back there by by the Russian forces there. Now, from here all the way through Uruzani, the next point we see movement was then Marinka. And then we're going to jump, of course, then into Avdiivka and have a look at what is happening then here. So let's step back to the beginning of the 12th. I think that's the last time I spoke to you. And the main spots we're looking is near Stepove, near Vodani, and the center here, as Russia squeezes and sort of tightens its grip on this area. So we see more of a push down this road here happening into the center of Avdiivka. We know that Russia has the high ground here, and I'll show you that in a second. So expanded its control there as they expanded their control near Stepove. So that's what we're seeing, is slow but expanding control in some areas there as well as we step through. So let's then have a look in Avdiivka, and we'll actually have a look over these areas, see what it is looking like on the ground, as Russia does have some high ground in here. Now, is it mountainous high ground? No. Is high ground important? The flatter it is, yes, very important. So you can see that they've gained then these positions here and are maintaining high ground on the eastern side. This is, of course, where they're expanding that control down. So let's have a look. So where we're looking is right here. Let's step up. So we're looking down onto there. And then you can actually see that Avdiivka, whoa, I'm everywhere. Avdiivka sort of sits in like a low bowl, and this could be a real problem. As it comes, you can see that Russia has gained more of, buddy, I'm hopeless at this. Russia has gained more of the high ground around Avdiivka, including on the northern flank. Now, they haven't got any of this here yet, but as we come around to Vesely, Stepove region, they have got some of this. Now, this is, of course, is the Offa quarry here, but have gained just some of that moderate high ground as it then steps out into more of the farms here. So that is an important area that is currently really happening, as Russian forces here have entered at least into the outer of Stepove, and you can just see straight across here this cauldron sort of tightening down on Avdiivka. And we do know that both sides are having large losses in there, and Russia is pushing very, very hard on that area. Now, let's get rid of Marinka to get myself lined up just a little bit more where we're then talking about. Now, just back onto the deep state, I just want to go up into Bakhmut and see if we've had any changes on this map. We have just right in the center of Bakhmut. Russia did make back more positions here. These were lost positions and has pushed out as well. Now, let's then show you this on the Syriac, what he says. Situation south of Bakhmut, Russian army recaptured the dashes west of the city, which was the maximum advance in this axis last May. So this is this exact area here. See, this road spits up, Again, we love when the maps line each other up. See right there, those dashes, right there. So let's then have actually a squeeze on the map. Now, someone asked me the other day, can you say didgeridoo? I don't know why. It must have been like, I think it was an American being like, can he, I don't know, maybe it's an Australian thing. Now, where are we? Here we go. So these are the dashes here. Now, this is showing that it's actually more ground being made there recently than is maybe showing. So just in this bit here. Now, one thing I will say, these maps don't do a great job of it, but Bakhmut is more hilly than it actually looks. So if we sit here, so you can see where these, can I go down more? So you can almost see where behind this hill here, and it just troughs down into there. There's actually a fair bit of hill in Bakhmut. And when you go into Bakhmut, you sort of go over one and then you're down into Bakhmut as well. And of course, this has caused a lot of problems in the fighting, but as well has given Ukraine a big advantage when it came to the defense of Bakhmut with their artillery, that these rolling hills back here were able then to sit guns in defilade positions. If we can just move back just a little bit. In defilade positions of these guns, drop down here so you can't really see Bakhmut. So the guns defilade, and as Russia was advancing over here in Bakhmut, was actually having a hell of a lot of success on there. But we have seen as well that Russia continue its push in the north of Bakhmut as well. Now, we can have a look that more of the high ground is actually being made in some of these areas by Russia as well. Russia is pushing very hard in the north, out near here, out near Botanivka. So they're trying to move into here as well. And I think these rolling hills, they may not look impressive, but these are a hell of a thing right in this area. So you can see how sort of flat it is out here and just how rolling it is in the far east of Ukraine here. And Russia is making ground in those directions currently. Maybe at a huge loss. I'm not denying that, but I'm saying that it is, there's definitely movements there. So then let's just have a push up right into here. This is Rozdalivka area. So let's have a look. No, nothing's seen on this map here, but let's go then onto this map, because this is saying that there is a change here. So Rozdalivka from Syriac, Eastern Front, Russian army advanced south of Sarko, crossing this river here. So let's actually have a look at exactly where we're sitting. So Sarko right here. So that this advancement out in here, and they said that they have advanced north of Sarko and crossing this river. So making some ground in here. So let's have a look. So advancing through a bit of a dip here. Can't see exactly what river. Oh, this river here. So very small stream, just a creek river there, and are making movements up there. So let's just show you exactly where this actually is. Oh, reset north. So of course this Spurny, this area above Bakhmut here. So a very tactically significant area. But we did think that Seversk was under a lot of threat well over 12 months ago. And this line has basically held in a lot of areas there. Now, let's then have a look at then Pivdeni as well. So the situation on Gorlovka front, Russian army recovered the last hill, which was retaken by Ukrainian army 4 weeks ago. So just here, these hills are getting taken. These, like we've spoken about, where there's not that much high ground, it's very, very important to get what you can. But you can see here that Russia is still in fairly low ground just here, and they are advanced out to here. And you can see where it comes down in this like valley here. So this will be very, very dangerous for Russia to try and fight through here, that Ukraine will have an advantage in this, probably of their artillery and mortars and some of the high ground here. But Russia are advancing and regained some areas of control there. Now we're going to go across to Yahidny Ivanivka here. So let's come down into here, and I'll bring up what Zurek says then specifically about this. Northeastern front, Russian army recaptured again the positions of Inevivka, so have taken back positions there as well. Now, this area is very, very flat farmland, agriculture here too. but still use terrain to their advantage. Now, one thing I do want to talk about, deep state map. Let's have a look up around Thankyou, and I actually believe that this is probably for Russia the most important advancement we've seen on the map for a while. So we see down Yahidny, that's what we just spoke about, where that Russian gain was. So that was confirmed by both Deep State and Suryak, but we're looking up in here. So you can see Thankyou, that Russia is advancing towards the 6 ways that they do want to get, and they want to get Thankyou then under control, so then they can have a push into Kupiansk. Now, that is still a long, long way away, if possible, but the advancement is actually being shown further on the Deep State than it is on the Suryak. So I'd say we may get a update on that. But as we know, these forest areas, this is hell on earth to fight through, and that it may speed up, though, as they push out of the forest in some regions down then into Kupiansk. But we are unsure. But we can see that Kupiansk is very, very important, but also that Ukraine will have some of the higher ground and the rolling areas here to defend with their mortars, artillery, and vehicles getting some extra range from there as well. So that is very important. Anyway, legends, if you'd like to support me, there's links down below, but never feel obliged. I just like talking to you guys and researching this myself. So have a great day, look after yourselves, get the gym, and I will see you very, very soon.